Welcome to episode 10 of Book Read. I'm very excited to be going back to the UK in a couple of seconds' time to meet author Nicholas Dobson. You are going to love his book, The Regal Throne, and you're going to hear all about it in a couple of minutes. Let's go and meet today's amazing book read author. Nicholas Dobson, welcome, star of the Jaden show. Welcome to Book Read now. How amazing is that?
Well, I'm delighted to be on the show, Jaden. Thanks very much for inviting me.
It's a pleasure. I'm delighted that you agreed to come and read some of your book. Today, we're going to be discussing your book, The Regal Throne. Can you tell us? Well, firstly, I mean, for those of you, the Jaden show, your episode of the Jaden show is still yet to come, so people are going to find a kind of a more in-depth view of Nicholas Dobson. But can you tell me today just a little bit of how you got into writing, and then a little bit of the story behind the Regal Throne?
Yes, indeed. Well, I've always liked writing, one thing or another, from childhood, when I really enjoyed books like the Sherlock Holmes books, and I did a degree in English literature at University of Leeds, and I started submitting some story items to Granada Television, which was producing a show called Coronation Street at the time, and contributed some stories to that. Then I was writing in connection with, I qualified as a lawyer, and I was writing in connection with that. So I was writing on legal things, and I was probably one of the first few who were trying to make legal articles entertaining, because my mother used to say, I don't know why you don't write something that people want to read, because you write boring old things. Because to her, and of course to most people, the law is a bit sort of staid and boring. But further down the line, I began to think it would be nice to write about some Shakespeare plays and try and explain them so people could really get sort of into them, because they're a bit off-putting if you encounter them for the first time. And some people may well think they're just boring, but they're not. They're all about people, and the people we recognise, the people we work with, the people we encounter, for good and for ill. And there's plenty of humour in them. But one of the difficulties is the English language has changed a bit since, Shakespeare was born in 1564. That's 461 years ago. And his birthday, traditionally on the 23rd of April, was yesterday. So if you were alive today, if he were on your show, he'd be looking a bit sort of wrinkly at 461 years old.
A bit grey, I think.
He'd be a bit grey. Well, he'd probably have more hair than me. Yes. So the language has changed in that time, but human nature hasn't. And Shakespeare's good on human nature. He's been he's aware of the ups and downs of human nature, the goods and the bads, the heroes and the villains, and the comic characters we all encounter every day. That some people don't know they're being comic. Some people are just foolishly comic, and he's got them all in his characters. So that's what I would like to say about Shakespeare. The Regal Throne tackles 4 of Shakespeare's plays, and they're all related. They're about 4 kings. Richard II, now he was, Shakespeare's Richard II we're talking about now, because I'm not talking about the historical character, but it was based upon Shakespeare's understanding of history from the historians of his time. Richard II was wasted his time, really, as a king. he spent an awful lot of money on himself and his courtiers, and had a whale of a time at the public expense.
You'd have been a politician then.
Well, he should probably. But like most politicians who abuse their position, he got ousted out. He went a bit far. He was exercising his authority in a rather oppressive way, and he got rid of one of the aspirants to his throne, banished him from the country for many years, for 6 years, as it turned out in the end. And worse than that, he took all this guy's property.
Wow.
And said, "I'm having that for me, and what I want to do with it." Well, that doesn't play well if you're the guy that's been had your property taken from you. So this guy called Bolingbroke came back with an army, had a lot of public support, and he was a very good politician. He schmoozed his way into the public heart, and eventually sort of was able to persuade Richard II, backed by a lot of force, to step down, and he eventually did Richard in, even though he sort of regretted having to do so afterwards, but at the time it was pragmatic. And the title, the Regal Throne, comes from what Bolingbroke, and his first name was Henry, so he was a Henry, and he was the Henry IV. In God's name, he said, "I will ascend the Regal Throne." And so he did. But he had quite a lot of friends on the way who helped him into office. But as soon as he got into office, he started throwing his weight around and becoming autocratic. And he lost their affection. The more autocratic he became, the more he lost it. Eventually, like Popeye the Sailor Man on the old cartoons, it had all he could stand, he can't stand no more, and they formed a rebellion against him. Now, that's Henry IV Part 1. That's also about his teenage son, who was going through the teenage years and wasn't his father's best hope at that time. He was mixing around with low companions in low alehouses in London, and he was not behaving like a prince, an heir to the throne, should behave. So his father was at his wit's end with him. But right at the beginning of the play, he makes a speech and saying, "You think I'm just a ne'er-do-well, I'm always going to be a ne'er-do-well, but just wait and see. I know what I'm doing, and when the time comes, I will redeem myself." And one of the ne'er-do-wells that he was hanging around with in these low taverns was a guy called Falstaff. And Falstaff, great, fat, boozy, overindulgent, he'd eat himself sick, he'd inhabit whorehouses. He was just thoroughly sort of disreputable, but very good company. And the Prince Hal, the heir to the throne, thought he was a great guy. But in the end, he knew he was going to have to get rid of him, and he did, rather brutally. He just told him to go before he ascended the throne as Henry V. Because Henry IV, Bolingbroke, had a troubled reign, which we see in Henry IV Part 1 and 2. And at the end of Henry IV Part 2, Prince Hal ascends the throne and becomes a completely reformed character. As the introduction, which I will read later, will illustrate. And when he has ascended the throne, he is Henry V, the model monarch. He's short of money, and his senior clerics have come up with a great wheeze that they've found some legal arguments that he's entitled to the throne of France, and they make these arguments. He invites the French ambassadors across to put his case, and they send the heir to the French throne, a chap called the Dauphin. The Dauphin just insults him and says, well, we know the likes of you. You've had a misspent youth. By token of just you're a plaything, we don't take you seriously. So here's what we're going to do. Here's a gift from the throne of France, a load of balls, a load of tennis balls. And that's what we think of you. King Henry V says, right, you choose to insult me. I think you may regret this. And he G's up the country, takes an army to France. They have awful times in France. They are undernourished. They're suffering from dysentery, bloody flux as it's called. That's when you're excreting blood and you're very, very depleted. They're hungry, they're undernourished. And the night before the battle, when the French are so full of confidence and talking down the English, they're well nourished, they've got great supplies, and they're ready to take the English out. He goes round the troops, spends all night doing that, inspiring them and encouraging them, and they win a perfect victory. So that's basically the story of the Regal Throne. And I tell the story in the book, but give Shakespeare's language as well, and explain Shakespeare's language in notes at the end of the book. So you could just read it as a novel, and if you want to find out what the words mean, then you go to the back of the book. Or if you have both, you have the paperback and an ebook on Kindle. You can, in the Kindle, all the notes are hypertexted, so you can go straight to the end of the book.
Wow, perfect.
So that's the Regal Throne in a nutshell.
Perfect. Would you like to read us some?
I'll start with the introduction I wrote, which when at first publication of the blog, because it gives a sort of the overview that I've been giving you, but in a bit more detail. Well, I'm going to start by reading an introduction to the Regal Throne, which was a blog I issued on first publication. It was initially published by Liverpool University Press, so it is still on their website. So here goes. The former News of the World, which was a Sunday newspaper, used to boast that all human life is there. However, someone had fixed their flag on human life long before that newspaper died. For Shakespeare, across his plays, expertly travels every small, tortuous highway and byway of the human condition. If you want to laugh, Shakespeare's there for you. You wonder why power often fails to bring expected peace of mind, but instead can often bring out the worst in us. Shakespeare shows. For although these dramas were written over 400 years ago, we meet the characters in them every single day. So the play cycle, Richard II, Henry IV Part 1 and 2, and Henry V is a good case in point. For Richard II, we see the king paying the price for abusing his power by losing it, along with his crown, his throne, and his life. As Richard ruefully remarks near the end of Act 5, I wasted time, and now doth time waste me. But we see another side of power with his successor, Henry Bolingbroke. For, shrewd politician as he is, Bolingbroke storms back to England from where he's been banished, ignores the banishing order upon him, and schmoozes his way to the top. As Richard painfully remarks, Bolingbroke courted the common people, and he did seem to dive into their hearts with humble and familiar courtesy, wooing poor craftsmen with the crafts of smiles. Nevertheless, despite achieving his coveted regal throne, power brought no comfort to King Henry IV, for his reign was blighted by rebellion, as he became autocratic, wielding what Shakespeare called the scourge of greatness on those who helped him ascend the throne. So buyer's remorse quickly became rebellion, as Henry Percy, who was known as Hotspur, urging armed resistance, tells close relatives they put down Richard, that sweet lovely rose, and instead planted this thorn, this canker, Bolingbroke. But whilst the insurrections ultimately failed, they didn't allow Henry to sleep easy. For amidst his palatial luxury, he struggles with insomnia. He can't sleep, and he wonders why, if many thousands of his poorest subjects are at this hour asleep, why will sleep not come to me? The king sadly concludes that whilst the lowest in the land can be happy, uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. And it was quite a famous line. But giving regular relief from the rebellion and dark political games, Shakespeare introduces us to a motley crew of drunken, lecherous thieves, braggarts and ne'er-do-wells, amongst whom is the standout comic hero of all time, that witty master of merry misrule, Sir John Falstaff. The young Prince Henry, Prince Hal, gives us a good picture of Falstaff early in Henry IV Part 1, where the overweight Sir John, presumably waking from a drunken sleep, asks what time it is. Prince Hal light-heartedly chides him. "Thou art so fat-witted with drinking of old dry sherry, and unbuttoning yourself after supper, and sleeping upon benches after noon. What the devil have you to do with the time of day? Unless hours were cups of sherry, and minutes capons, and clocks the tongues of boards, and their dials the signs of brothels, leaping houses, and the blessed sun himself, a fair hot wench in flame-coloured taffeta." But apart from exchanging witty banter, the lowlifes, along with the prince, plan a spot of highway robbery. For although Prince Hal seems to be sharing the general good humour, he knows exactly what he's doing, for as he makes clear at the end of the scene, while acting the madcap is fine for now, he will certainly reform when he needs to do so. And then the contrast will have a dramatic effect, for when he throws off his loose behaviour, he tells us that like bright metal on a dull, sullen ground, my reformation, glittering all my fault, shall show more goodly and attract more eyes than that which has no foil, no backdrop to set it off. Prince Hal concludes by making it clear that whilst he will offend to make offence a skill as a young man, he will redeem himself when men least think he will. Well, he certainly proves as good as his word, for at the end of Henry IV Part 2, the newly crowned Henry V, he ruthlessly casts off Falstaff, his former father of misrule, telling him, "I know thee not, old man." The king indicates that he has now turned away his former self. As Prince Hal correctly predicted, this astounds those who had written him off as a useless waster. At the beginning of Henry V, the Archbishop of Canterbury tells us that whilst the courses of his youth promised it not, No sooner had the breath left his father's body than the former Prince Hal's wildness, mortified in him, seemed to die too, for never was such a sudden scholar made, never came reformation in such a flood as in this king. From someone whose addiction was to courses vain, as Shakespeare put it, Hal had become a learned, wise, and fully rounded king. Nevertheless, whilst the king's madcap phase seemed to be solely for fun, it had a serious side, for it enabled him to deal man to man with all types and classes of people. This was crucial before the Battle of Agincourt in France, where as royal captain of this ruined band of sick, hungry and weak soldiers, as Shakespeare put it, his band of brothers, he led them to victory. Even then, though, he took no personal credit for this, for the victory wasn't his, it was that of God only. So the king ordered, "Be it death proclaimed throughout our army, to boast of this or take the praise from God, for it is his victory and his alone." So the Regal Throne will take you through every scene of each of the 4 plays. It explains just what's going on, giving the meaning of all unfamiliar words. And the book also contains very extensive quotations with over 3,000 optional endnotes hypertextured in the ebook version on Kindle, which offers further information to those that want it. So I'm going to read a little bit from Act 5, Scene 1 of Henry IV, Part 1, from my book. And that scene closes with an interesting comic speech by Falstaff on the virtue of honour. In those days, honour was very important. You had the family name to uphold, you went into battle, and you did your very best for the country, and you'd be written up well if you died honourably, and it would be a great curse on your family if you died dishonourably, or you failed to shine in battle, or even worse, escape from the battle. But Falstaff has a different take on honour, which he argues is of no tangible benefit to those who have it. For, he says, whilst honour spares him to go forward into battle, honour pricks me on. What if honour marks his card with a hole, as amongst those who've died, or those who were earmarked to die? He'll end up dead, and in Falstaff's view, that's just worthless currency. For, as he says, can honour mend a broken leg? Can it set to a leg? No. Or a broken arm? No. Or take away the grief of a wound? No. Well, honour's no good as a surgeon then, no. So what is honour? It's a word. And what's in that word, honour? Well, air. Huh. Not much to that, it's a trim reckoning. Who's got honour? He that died last Wednesday. Does he feel it? No. Does he hear it? No. So it's insensible then. Yea, because the person who has it is dead. But worse, honour won't last even when the honoured is alive, for it won't survive the slagging off of others. Falstaff says he'll have none of it, for honour is a mere memorial shield and nothing more. So one of the reasons for Falstaff's popularity over the ages is his shameless capacity to voice exuberantly shameful truths about human beings, whilst robustly embodying a formidable collection of human weaknesses himself. Now, you'll recall from the introductory blog that I was reading that Prince Hal, who while heir to the throne was a bit of a wastrel, he had always planned to make good in the end. And he, in doing so, has to reject Falstaff. And it's quite a sad scene, because Falstaff is expecting to be welcomed into Prince Hal, King Henry V's new court, as a great close friend of the king, and they're going to have a whale of a time with all the riches of the nation at their disposal, but he's to be bitterly disappointed. For as the new King Henry V enters in the royal procession, he's waiting with one of his mates, a chap called Pistol, who's who's a braggart and ludicrously pompous, and they're in the crowd ready to wink at the new king and establish their places in what they think will be his riotous royal court. So they both cry out as he passes. Falstaff, God save thy grace, King Hal, my royal Hal. And his mate Pistol says, the heavens thee guard and keep, most royal imp of fame. And Falstaff shouts, God save thee, my sweet boy. But the response he gets is chilly, as King Henry, treating Falstaff as beneath his notice, bids his Lord Chief Justice speak to that vain man. The Justice therefore rebukes Falstaff for speaking so familiarly to the monarch. Have you your wits? Do you not know to whom you're speaking? Sir John tries to override him with what he takes to be his superior personal relationship with Hal. He invokes the deep affection he feels for his noble companion. My king, my Jove, I speak to thee, my heart. But the king's rejection is clear, cold, and brutal. I know thee not, old man. Then in a highly significant transformational speech, delivered in formal verse, the new king makes a decisively clean and complete public break with his former way of life. He starts by advising Falstaff to fall to his prayers. For how ill white hairs become a fool and a jester. Falstaff should, indicates the new king, be acting with dignity befitting his years. King Harry now compares his own way of life and his former companions to a disturbing and distasteful bad dream from which he is now woken up. I have long dreamed of such a kind of man, so surface-swelled, so old, and so profane, but being awaked, I do now despise my dream. So the new king urges Falstaff to reform, to become more religiously attentive, and to stop pigging out in taverns, gluttonously, voraciously eating. Make less thy body hence, and more thy grace. Since, given his size and his way of life, the grave doth gape for thee thrice wider than for other men. But before Falstaff can come back as of old with a disarming wisecrack, the king cautions him, reply not to me with a fool-born jest. And significantly, the king bids him and the world generally to presume not that I am the thing I was, for God doth know, and so shall the world perceive, that I have turned away my former self, so will I those who kept me company. So a brutal severing of his old mate Falstaff, with whom he got on so well. But one of the benefits for the king as Henry V of hanging around in low taverns and meeting all sorts of people and raising a pint glass with all sorts of people was that he's good with people, he understands people, and he's a great leader. And that's shown in the night before the Battle of Agincourt. His troops, as I said at the beginning, were absolutely weak. They are feeling awful. They've got bloody diarrhea and they're undernourished. Their clothes are wet with the rain. They're just an absolute state. By comparison, the French are well groomed, they've got excellent equipment, and they're well fed. So what does he do? The French expect to annihilate the English next day at Agincourt, but he goes around the night before, as the introduction to Act 4 tells us, going around from tent to tent, inspiring all his troops. He doesn't sleep himself, he goes around bringing encouragement to everybody, and that does the trick. So a character called Chorus introduces Act 4, and I'll read what he says because it is quite striking. And this is about King Henry V. Forth he goes and visits all his host, his army, bids them good morrow with a modest smile, and calls them brothers, friends and countrymen. Upon his royal face there's no note how dread an army hath enrounded him, the French surrounding them with well nourished and armed troops. Nor does he dedicate one jot of colour upon the weary and all-watched night, but freshly looks and overbears all attaint with cheerful face and sweet majesty, that every wretch, pining and pale before, beholding him, plucks comfort from his looks. A largesse universal like the sun, his liberal eye does give to every one, he shines on them like the sun. Thawing cold fear that mean and gentle all behold, as may unworthiness define, a little touch of Harry in the night. So he has a magic touch and inspires the troops to great things. I'll just finally read a short extract from the afterword of the Regal Throne, and the afterword is called Hollow Crown, and where that comes from, it's a speech by Richard II when he realised he was on the down, and it talks about the fragility of power. It doesn't mean a thing because in the end we're all human. A king might think he's all powerful, but in the end death will remove all power and he'll just be like everyone else, 6 feet under the ground. So Richard says in the course of his play, within the hollow crown that surrounds the mortal temples of a king, keeps death his court, scoffing his state and grinning at his pomp and majesty, allowing him a breath, a little scene to act the king, to monarchize, to be feared and kill with looks, infusing him with self and vain conceit, thinking he's above all humanity, as if this flesh which wars about our life were brass impregnable, and humoured thus, so self-deluded, comes at the last, and with a little pin bores through his castle wall like a balloon bursting. Farewell, King. So that's the Hollow Crown, which is the title of the afterword of the book. So I just say at the end of the book that power is not itself inevitably evil, for if used wholly or mainly for its proper purpose, that is the wise governance of those for whose benefit the power has been given, then all can be well. Such was the case substantially for Shakespeare's Henry V. For whilst he wasn't immune to personal intoxication of power and self-aggrandizement, King Henry was equally able during his reign to maintain a healthy sense of proportion and to add a benign centre to the hollow crown for the greater good of his kingdom. Shakespeare's Henry V also has much to teach modern leaders in Henry's preparedness to get down and dirty with those he led in order to advance the common objective. His little touch of Harry in the Night was, for instance, magically transformative, and save perhaps for Shakespeare's rather crass portrayal of his courtship of Princess Catherine, which takes up most of Act 5. Princess Catherine was the King of France's daughter, and it was what you might call a strategic alliance to enhance King Henry's power and the power of the country. From discourse with thieves and drunken layabouts to the elevated parley with those of the highest estate, he's able to, as a poet once put it, to mix with kings nor to lose the common touch. He was a king for all seasons. But in many parts of the world, the last, I think, paragraph of the Regal Throne, political and other state killings are regrettably common, and we just see that in the news every day. However, nowadays, at least in the West, although the political game remains as brutal as in any Shakespeare play, the corpses that litter the political stage in the UK, at least, are usually only the reputations of those assassinated by their political rivals. For power aspirants remain as ruthlessly avid in pursuit of their own regal crowns as Bolingbroke ever was. However, there are few leaders whom history will show to be as able to wear the crown of power with as much effectiveness, wisdom, and victorious dignity as did Shakespeare's Henry V. So a tale of 4 kings, finishing with a king for all seasons. I think that's all I would want to say about the Regal Throne at this point.
That sounds amazing. I know people struggle with Shakespearean language, but I love it. It's just way more deep, intense and cutting than anything we can say now in our modern day language, I feel.
Well, there's no one like him who really sort of puts his finger on what it is to be human in all senses of the word, really, for good or for ill.
Completely. No, I love it. Thank you so much for reading that. Where is it available for our avid viewers?
Well, in bookshops, or the easiest way to get it is probably via Amazon. This is what the book looks like, if you can see that. It's available in hardback, paperback, or as a Kindle e-reader. And it's often useful to have... I quite like the Kindle version of it because of the hypertext. But if you like traditional books, the paperback is a good option. The Kindle...
Both. Both people.
Yeah, well, it's good. I use ebooks a lot, and I often have both. But the Kindle version is good value for money. It's a lot cheaper than the paperback, but having both is probably the best thing to do.
There is nothing like the smell of a good book.
There isn't. No, I mean a book is lovely.
Yeah.
So I have loads of books on my bookshelves are full.
Yeah, I've probably got about 9 or 10 tea chests of books in my mother's attic in London that as soon as I can afford to ship them all out, they're coming. As soon as I can get my library here, that's my plan.
They're old friends, aren't they? They're old friends.
Really, I miss them. Yeah, really. I just love being around them. I've been watching some kind of medieval drama stuff that's on Netflix at the moment, and one of them walked into a library and I was like, that's it, that is my library, that is what I want. Yeah, one day when I grow up I'm definitely going to get that. Nicholas Dobson, thank you so much for reading The Regal Throne. People at home, you know where to buy it. If you are with any confusion about how to get it, you will find the links on the introduction to this book read episode as well, so please make sure you go and get your copies. And as suggested within the chat, an e-book and actual physical book is great, because when there's something you're stuck in the physical book, you can go straight to the ebook, click on the hyperlink and have it explained for you. Absolutely magical. Nicholas, thank you so much. I'm so looking forward to having you back on the show again soon to read from another one of your amazing books, Descent into Darkness.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much again, Jaden. Much enjoyed being with you today.
Always. Thank you. Never a chore, my friend. I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nicholas, for being today's special featured author. People at home, you've seen on the title page where you can support Nicholas and where you can purchase the book. I suggest you do. It will be a great asset to your bookshelf. Get on and do that before you sign off today. Please make sure you share. Please make sure you comment. Please make sure you subscribe. And if you have any questions for the author, please put them in the comment section of this video, and then Nicholas and I will get back together again so Nicholas can answer your questions personally. Please do that. It would be really, really wonderful. You take care. Share, subscribe, like, hit the tinkly bell, and I'll see you on the next episode of Book Read. Take care. Bye-bye.